Hello and welcome to the Brooklyn Rail's 498th New Social Environment. I'm Cal, the curatorial assistant here at the Rail, and I have the pleasure and the privilege of being your MC today for a conversation featuring Chris Martin, Marcus Jahmal, and Phong H. Bui. We're thrilled to welcome the poet Molly McGlennen here to close today's program. Before we get started, the Brooklyn Rail acknowledges Black Lives Matter and that here in New York, we are on Lenapehoking, the unceded lands and waters of the Wappinger, Canarsie, Munsee, and Lenni Lenape people of the Delaware Nation and the Shinnecock Indian Nation. We encourage you to check the chat for a living document of resources and actions. Over the past 22 years, the Brooklyn Rail has undertaken a miraculous journey, bringing together in a single monthly publication art, music, dance, film, theater, and literature, along with thoughtful social and political meditations. As a small nonprofit, we need your support. Your contribution will directly support our writers, guest artists, production staff, and operations here at the Rail. Please check the chat for more information and links to donate. And now to introduce today's guest and host. Born in 1990, Marcus Jahmal lives and works in New York. He was raised in Brooklyn's Prospect Heights neighborhood, growing up in a family with roots in the West Indies and the American South. Jahmal has exhibited widely in the United States, Europe, and Asia. Contemporary American abstract painter Chris Martin's wide range of material and imagery is drawn from Buddhist mandalas, the landscape of the Catskills, and the legacy of abstract expressionism. Martin lives and works in Brooklyn, New York. And now I will hand things over to our publisher and artistic director, Phong H. Bui. Phong, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Cal. Happy Friday, you all. I'm so super excited to get this chance to talk to my two friends. Chris is an old friend. Marcus, relatively old, but really new. So I must say, as we getting through this pandemic, which have slowed us down quite significantly, we have also come to realize that slowness is a natural DNA in all of us, especially those of us who are endowed by any form of shape of creative impulses. For it takes time, super long time to make a painting, to make a sculpture. It takes time to write a poem. It takes time to compose a piece of music, to choreograph a dance, and so on and so forth. Yeah, for me personally, it's been a lot of reading, incessantly so, especially with American history and its philosophy from the beginning until now, from the theology of Reformed Puritan Calvinism and to native moral philosophy from the American equivalent of European Age of Enlightenment, from Jonathan Edwards to the Founding Fathers, to Alexis de Tocqueville, from Emerson, Thoreau, to Uncle Whitman, from Frederick Douglass, Victoria Goodhall, would you believe it? A hero of mine now. How about Elizabeth Cady Stanton? Of course, from W.E.B. Du Bois to Booker T. Washington, from George Sanders Peirce to William James to John Dewey and so on. Well, I think somebody should give me a PhD or BMW. I think I choose the latter maybe. Anyway, the point is, for the first time in my life, I feel I don't want to call myself just a New Yorker or Brooklynite anymore. I would like to call myself an American. Would you believe it, Chris? Jahmal? I am an American, I love the fragile nature of democracy. We have to fight for it. I'm up for the task, as we all are. So, what does all of this have anything to do with Chris Martin and Jahmal, Marcus Jahmal? I don't know. And I won't ever know, really, except for it's a good preamble. For example, when Thoreau was put in jail for not paying tax in Concord, Massachusetts, known that his money was, feeding the institution of slavery and the US war against Mexico, Emerson came to visit him and say, "Hey, Henry, what are you doing in there?" Thoreau saying, respond, "What are you doing out there?" That's how I feel about Chris and Marcus. I do. And I'm thinking also about John Dewey repudiation against the artificial division between academic and vocational learning. This inevitably brings up to the idea of, which is Chris, is taught and self-taught, but he dropped out of Yale. Did I say Yale or Yale? Can't remember. He dropped out of Yale University. Yale, yes. And then went back later to finish his undergrad degree. And I think Brett is in the house now, old friend of Chris, where he studied art therapy. We'll talk about briefly. And the self-taught, Marcus, you know, but I'm not so sure about that. You know, I'm grateful though, I must say, to their works as artists, but also them as friends respectively, because having observed their growth as artists for so long, I can certainly say that to a certain degree with Freedom and Marcus and Chris, they do not take for granted. Both being free from something or becoming free to something. Super impressive. They're both strong and agile at the same time. They both know how to activate the temporary autonomous zone through and through. They both handsome, although at this point Marcus seemed to be more handsome just because he's younger. I don't know. No, Chris is handsome too. All right, what I'm saying that I'm grateful to Chris and Marcus particularly because in thinking about them, it gave me this incredible idea to undertake a huge show that the Rare Cultural Project will be putting together. Previously, it was called the Taught and Self-Taught in Democratic Vistas, but we changed our mind recently. It's gonna be called Singing in Unison, : artists need to create on the same scale that society has the capacity to destroy. Whoa. Yes, it will be in multiple locations from May until October to celebrate our 22nd year anniversary. I will post you updated from now on and onward, definitely. But for now, let's welcome Chris and Marcus to our NSE number 498 on the occasion to show. All right, Cal, what can we do? Can we jump into this, the selection of slides? What I want to do is that I thought it would be good to show a few images of Chris's show, and then few images of Marcus' show, and then we're going to show individual work one by one in succession, and then we all can have discussion. I know a lot of people might wanted to join in, but let's just wait a while. Maybe one exception, Kathy Bradford can come in anytime. All right, so this is it. This is the view in the ground floor at Anton Kern Gallery. As you walk in, you see that painting, which we'll talk in a minute. Go ahead, Carl. Wonderful selection of variety painting, and the back room, luminous with large paintings. Incredible. Yes, beautiful. And then we're going to see Marcus upstairs on the 3rd floor with recent works. Terrific. Thank you so much, Kyle. All right, let's begin with Chris. Gold Teeth for Lance de los Reyes. Chris, what's your relationship with Lance?
Well, Lance was a real friend and a comrade, and we used to visit each other's studios, and I admired him for many years before I met him because he was Rambo, the great street artist who painted all those billboards on the BQE in Brooklyn, Queens, and painted wonderful paintings all over buildings and trains, and but particularly the billboards that he did were something that I admired for many years. So then when I met him, I was very much a fan. of his work. And at the same time, he was making paintings and drawings and was a very intense person. We're talking about him in the past tense because Lance died, I guess about a month ago, suddenly. So we all miss him. Lance, one of his artworks was that he had a lot of his teeth taken out and replaced with gold teeth.
Yeah.
And so this is an homage to his gold teeth.
Oh, I
Well,
didn't know they were permanent.
I think his desire was that when he died, they were going to cut his head off and preserve the skull with gold teeth, and that was going to be this important sculpture that he wanted to leave for everybody, but that wasn't able to happen.
wow, that's fabulous, Chris. I love the fact that it's hanging super high up, so it catches your attention right away. So listen, quickly, you know, I read Raymond Foyle, amazing essay this morning, our consultant editor also at the Rail. It touches so many different aspects of your work, Chris, particularly in the 80s, really. Huge appetite for everything under the sun, you know? Anything that can be welcome and materialized as form or new language, whatever lies between dream and realized situation, from our hell, hot edge abstraction to Annette Besant and Leadbeater, thought form, and from Alan Ginsberg to the Mud Club, from Brackett, Harris Smith, to Boyce Clemente, to Caskew Mountain, to Jim Harrison, I don't know, to being an art therapist, super important part of your life. Could you describe now, just to take one of the later thing that Raymond mentioned, which is the graffiti, the influence of graffiti, how did it play in your work and when did it appear?
Well, I got to New York in the 70s. So by the beginning of the late 70s, beginning of the 80s, there was great spray painting stuff happening everywhere, in the subways, on the subways, and all over the streets of New York. So then around 80, I also was seeing Basquiat's great Samo graffiti around town, and a block from where I was living on Houston Street, maybe by the mid 80s, Keith Haring did a huge mural on a wall. So all of that really influenced me. I think particularly the idea of, well, two things. One was the actual reality of these paintings on buildings and on subways, the fabulous surfaces that people were painting on, and then the urgency and just the greatness of the graphics and color that some of the artists were achieving. So it was just terrific art. And I think that I was very taken by the idea that these artists went out and out of necessity, had to paint very large surfaces very fast. And so they had to kind of know what they were doing. And then it was an incredible dance. And that was a very important lesson for me to learn, that one could attack a large surface or a large image all over very quickly, and just to have courage, really. And that's the kind of thing I saw with Lance, with Rambo, and then later he was painting as Viper. The work was tremendous, and there's a tremendous urgency there. So that was an inspiration for me.
Yeah. What do you think about that skull, Marcus? Somebody who painted skull quite often too.
Right. You know, I mean, I always loved Chris's skulls, and, you know, the idea of anatomic painting. Obviously, also another ode to like 80s painting, you know, Basquiat and Sandro Chia and all those guys. And there's something about the skull that kind of like unites us all. There's no skin color. I mean, it's something that that's inside of all of us. So I love that factor of painting skulls, and I think that's what draws me towards it as well.
Cool. Well, let's just go right into your first painting here, Marcus. Yeah, so this is, you often talk about, when I first met you, filter realism. I mean,
Right.
can you just share with our friends here what you meant by that? Because I know it changes over the course of the last few years,
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, so it's kind of like me rejecting the term surrealism. And like, I think that's a very specific moment in time and a specific movement that obviously happened in Europe. And, as an American and as we're kind of reinventing painting in our own way since the 50s, I think that we kind of had to invent new terms in order for us to define our work. And it's not quite like, and it's definitely not realism, like photorealism, but it's definitely not surreal. So I kind of had to come up with a new term that kind of ties them both in together and represents what I'm doing in a way. So there's like, red skies, orange trees, and this atypical coloration of these organic materials. And I think that's where it comes from.
Right.
Even when I do the interior paintings, they're not quite like normal.
So look at this painting quickly here, Marcus. The figure, the outline of the white, it seemed to be painted.
I see silver.
Is it silver? Right. Silver paint. Right. Painted last. So this is something I've been wanting to ask you, because Chris have his own idea how a certain immediacy in terms of how image might emerge from the dream. He talked about his early painting or the use of the griffin image. You have your own association with dream. And looking at this painting, the figure, the silver painted figure, seemed to be painted last. Is that something that might have derived from a dream, or is something that you just felt needed in the last minute?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it is kind of like a dreamscape. I mean, the landscape within itself, but yeah, absolutely, it was created last, and it was really to show like the layers in the painting. And sometimes I work from that lens as far as it's like showing the physicality of the work and the work as an object, as opposed to just like an illusionistic picture plane. And it was more about the symbology behind like transparency that I wanted to kind of depict with this one.
Got it.
And kind of like these like wild beasts, or like, showing the animalistic, showing a human as like an animal. And also like ode to like the Fauvists and those European painters who really dealt a lot in color. And yeah, just like taking everything back to its roots, kind of.
Right. I really like the gesture, the blue that come out from his hand right onto the bucket water, just implied water.
Yes, absolutely.
Anchor that area so nicely. Yeah, let's go to the next, to Chris's painting. Indeed, a similarly two figure, I think. constellation-like, it's expanded in the sky there, and then you have the cutout of Marvin Gaye below, Chris. So, which bring to the question of your kind of strong tie to music. And can you sort of tell us a little bit of this painting here?
I think it's a kind of from a star map of maybe Gemini, the twins.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Marvin is there. He's looking at it, I think. There was another thing of Marvin, I think, on the other side that then became a gold rectangle. So, you know, I don't know about this painting. I really don't know. These things happen at a certain point. You're working on a painting and it feels like it's itself, it's becoming itself. But that doesn't mean that I understand what the painting means or what the message is. I don't know, you know, I've certainly Marvin Gaye, such a great genius, and he had a big influence on me as an artist. And so I think that's a picture from a album, an actual record album that I cut out, and there he is.
Sadly, he was shot by his father at such a young age, Chris. He's barely 45. Was it in 1984?
A terrible tragedy.
Right, terrible tragedy. Yeah, super, super true. Okay, so let's go to the next one, Carl. See it, Marcus. Yes, Phoenix. This painting is fabulous. You didn't feel out the left wing there. Talk about transparency.
Right, same thing, the transparency. And it's like the rise of the Phoenix story, you know, the story that we hear about all the time. Just wanted to depict it visually, and it's the smallest painting in the show, and the only blue painting in the show. And I just felt like it kind of like balanced all the rest of the works that were kind of like red heavy. And you know, the story about the phoenix rising from the ashes, and how that's like very American too, you know, like and like as far as like early colonialism, and how that story kind of resonates with, you know, the imperial system, and starting, you know, as far as like, you know, something never dying and just like reoccurring somewhere else on the earth, like rising again. And
what do you think of that, Chris?
Oh, I love this painting. I mean, I love Marcus's paintings. And I want to say, going back to that early thing about the skull,
Yeah.
the first time I visited your studio, Marcus, there were all these drawings all over the floor, and there was a skull drawing about a foot, and I still want that drawing. But I think that this is just a wonderful painting, and there's this kind of red fiery bird. There's this white and black. There's this tree that's kind of cold, hot. And I think that Marcus and I, one thing we share, I think, is that in the process of the painting, we are looking to discover the painting and discover the image and be surprised. And at a certain point, there's this idea that, well, I think this one's finished, but it's a mysterious process how images come, and the reason I think that this image feels so kind of authentic is that it's come through Marcus.
I agree with that.
Okay.
It's a lovely painting.
That's a nice.
Yeah, I like that you said it comes through and not comes from.
Uh-huh.
because it's kind of like a, you know, like a cosmic, you know, order. It's kind of like, I like what, I think, I forgot, I don't know if it's Gustin or someone, a painter said that he likes to be alone in the studio because once he's alone, then he himself or herself leaves the room as well, and it just becomes like God and the canvas at that point.
Right, right. Well,
And
I think that certain decision that, you know, you made, that is exactly what Chris was saying. It's surprising, it's open and very tight at the same time. I love the way that you chose not to fill in the left wing, to expose the behind tree, and then the blue line cut in behind it. It's, to me, it speaks also the similar to the bottom right where the blue was not painted over. I think that little open to the black behind that, it just balanced the painting so beautifully. You know, just the way the eye love to look at it, that kind of fragility. Terrific. All
yeah,
right, Chris.
all these paintings started with like a base layer of black oil paint. That was kind of like the reoccurring thread between all the works and how I wanted to start them off.
Right.
So, and each one, the back is kind of exposed in different ways
Yeah.
as well.
And what kind of black do you use here, Marcus?
I'm using all the blacks. You know, I literally bought every shade of black and had my assistant just basically paint all the back layers with different ones. So I'm not even sure which one this is. But
Yeah. Okay, cool. Chris doesn't have an assistant yet. Hello. How do you manage to get an assistant? Marcus.
I get
All right.
help. I get help.
Okay, good. Terrific. I do too. Kyle, can we go to the next one, to Chris's painting? All right, this is the recurrent motif of the twins, Chris. Without Marvin gave this time.
Yeah, this is a very big painting. It's like 11 feet. And a lot of the paintings that I have in the show were actually started with blue, that
Yeah.
the paintings were painted a cobalt or a light ultramarine, you know, and that was the ground that I worked out of. And I'm painting this size, I'm actually painting it on the floor and sort of walking on the painting to sort of find the image and draw out the image. I think there's a little bit of a chalk drawing and then I'm painting it in. I think this is a very straightforward painting.
Was the bottom, you know, horizontal like, Chris, was it painted first or last? Because I'm curious about how you lift up a little bit so you can see the edge where you sign your name on the
I think it
right.
was first, right?
I think that, I don't know. I mean, I think that's something I do a lot. It brings me a great kind of comfort, or I feel grounded when I have this horizontal bottom kind of line.
Yeah.
And
Bottom line.
the bottom line. And I think that when my children were like 5 and 7 and they were becoming these great painters and artists, I was very conscious that they started a lot of their work by drawing a line and then drawing the figures and things on top of that line. And I just thought that was really a great way to start a painting.
Well, it's one of the most, I would say, anchor painting in the show, Chris. Is that the one that maybe that we have seen in the smaller version several years ago, Chris?
Could be. I mean, I think that this painting was painted very quickly, and then some of the smaller stars were maybe added. I think that what I told myself when I really painted the painting was that I was pretending I was painting like a wall in Bushwick, and that I just had to get this thing out there, up there, and done.
Right,
So to try to be as direct as possible.
right. So that's also the reference to graffiti also, because you also have painting that might have required several years to paint. So this is one of the rare, very fast painting. What do you think of this, Marcus?
Are you a Gemini, Chris?
No, I'm not actually.
What is your sign, if you don't mind?
I'm a Libra.
A Libra, oh, like my dad.
I think that this is, I see Gemini sometimes up. I mean, I spend a lot of time up here in the Catskills, and when I'm up here at night, I really watch star movement more. And I know I've been painting Gemini. It must mean something. Maybe your dad could tell me what it means.
No, I mean, he's a Libra like you.
Oh, okay.
But, I don't know. I could see that. I mean, I guess it's not so, it doesn't have to be so autobiographical, it's more about something that you're seeing and painting.
I mean, it's a couple. Maybe it's me and my partner, Tamara Gonzalez. Maybe it's, it's a couple, clearly.
I guess we all like resonate with each of the astrological signs and not necessarily just, subjugated to one. And, I think that's absolutely true.
Cool. You're so wise, Marcus. Okay, so let's go to the next painting of Marcus here. Yes. I mean, I never seen a painting of a singular figure without any context of background in terms of landscape interior. Just first time I've ever seen Marcus made a painting like this, Chris. It was shocking. We've seen this image before, but never this monochromatic, mostly just black and white, a little red showing through. So how did, what compelled you to put the figure in the middle and add nothing else, Marcus? Because this is new.
It's new, yeah. I mean, I think it's like an overpainting. Like under this was like a painting of a window, and outside the window was like a red sky, just like the rest of the landscapes. And that was my idea to do like these window paintings, thinking about like Motherwell or Rothko or somebody like that. And then it just wasn't quite working for me, so I decided to just paint it in black, like void it out, so I do a figure in a void, and I kind of like sculpted the figure in there. I felt like while I was painting it, I was also kind of sculpting it. And as far as like laying down the white paint and then kind of coming back in with the black and kind of like chiseling and the figure out. And for me, it's just about like a figure, but also like he's like a tree as well.
True.
Yeah, like so like in the show, I feel like the human forms resemble trees and the trees resemble human forms.
Right on.
Right on.
And I mean, it's all organic material at the end of the day. And I just loved how like even like the white drips coming from the body. That was just so natural how that happened. And it's kind of like his soul is just spilling out in the black void, and the black oil, with the themes of like excavating and mining of oil, and it kind of all came together like that. And then he just has this expressive quality. That's why I called it Scarecrow.
Huh, cool. I think we have another one right after this where you see the back. Different figure, but still it's very iconic. Wouldn't you say so, Chris? Right in the middle?
Oh, it's a great painting. It's terrific.
Rear ending.
Rear ending.
Rear ending.
Is that okay to say there's a potential a male genital behind his fanny, or no? Am I just?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, like I mean, I'm never afraid to, you know, be so expressive and, you know, express sexuality and, you know, genital parts in the work. I mean, I feel like it's kind of freeing in a way, you know, like, you know, people started like aristocratic paintings and painting commissioned portraits for the kings and the queens and the royal families. And I feel like by painting a figure in the nude like that kind of takes it back to like a raw essence. And also it's like, you know, how Egon Schiele started to paint those kind of like nude figures. I was looking at a lot of Schiele works and Goya and a lot of like painting like the, you know, the beggars and stuff like that. And it kind of took the essence back into painting as like a raw state, as opposed to, like I said before, like aristocratic commission portraits and stuff.
I just like the way it's anchored the bottom, you know, Chris?
Oh, it's terrific. And the on the second floor of the gallery, in between Marcus and my show, is a show of Baslit's drawings, some of them very large, most of them single figures. And I think, you know, there's this long tradition of how do you present a human being, paint a human being in a way which is real and poignant and shocking. And, you know, I see you, Marcus, in a long tradition of human beings painting human beings. And the challenge is to make it fresh and to try to get as much, you know, humanity in there. And it's not always, you know, beautiful and pretty. It's also just, I mean, it's also funny, right? It's like you're showing us your ass.
And it's also, and each one is also cropped too in a different way. I mean, I think that was like an important element to these small figure paintings that I did. They all were, well, I think every painting I know, every painting in the show was they're all cropped in a way. Like you don't see like the full body or full figure in any one of the paintings actually. And I thought that I like the idea. It was like kind of really cinematic for me. And
Oh, well, that's a new way of describing it. I'd never heard that term described before, cinematic. Well, I mean, I love this painting, Chris, partly because, as you pointed out, it's brutal, but it's also very tender. And some reason I am thinking of wrong workshop all sudden now, you know? There's certain motivation. Yeah, the way the mark is the centralized mark, and the similarities of the mark making too. Iconic also, not to mention that. All right, let's go to Chris's next. All right, Chris, what do you think about here? Because I love to be able to ask you a bit. You know, one of the things that Raymond spoke quite eloquently, the way he wrote about it, was the connection, your trip to India, your relationship to spirituality, and our hell altogether. Would that be a kind of simplistic way to describe, particularly in this painting, Chris?
Well, when I came to New York in the 70s, I was very influenced by some of the very large, minimal abstract paintings. And I fell in love with Al Held's work, especially from the 60s. You know, that whole Abex tradition of Rothko or Clifford Still. And I think that I am mostly a landscape painter. I think and so I think of this as a landscape, a night landscape. It's very large, it's 11 feet tall. So working on this, there's this sense of being kind of inside, having a kind of, that it's an enveloping thing. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I think the black drawing actually comes from a feeling of kind of almost a totemic mask kind of thing. Thinking of that room in the Met where they have the Maori carvings and sculptures. And so it's kind of a large figure in some ways. And, but I think it's obviously, it's night sky. So, and it has some spray paint in it. It's acrylic and then spray paint on top and inside.
Right. It seems big, obviously, but it's also very small. It's very intimate. The painting itself, you know, which bring me quickly as you also spoke often in the past, Chris, that you have admiration for forest bass, you know, on the hand, and the other is Myron style. So it's not just our hair, Chris. You know, all this form and the aura of the configuration seem to evoke so many layers of these admiration. I mean, there's one thing that I think we should acknowledge, that you never shy away of things that you fall in love with. You struggle through it at times, but would it be fair to say that, you know, you don't really censor your excitement when you encounter something?
Well, yes. I mean, I think that, you know, Marcus and I, being artists here in 2000, whatever year it is, I mean, all of us artists are exposed to so many cultures and images of art from all over the world, from hundreds and thousands of years ago. Mm-hmm. So all of this now is available to us, and we see it. You know, so we're all. It's a very global thing. So,
like guys,
you know, it's a giant world of images that human beings have been making for thousands and thousands of years. And so, yes, I think I can be inspired by all kinds of things. Sometimes I'm very surprised by the things that, you know, really get under my skin and really take hold. And certainly Myron Stout has been someone that I've looked at carefully for a long time. What a privilege to look at those things.
Okay, well, that's fair. Marcus, any quick remark here of the painting? You've seen it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's totally like breathtaking, you know, especially seeing the scale. And this one particularly really reminds me of the cosmos. But also going back to Gorchov, reminds me like a saddle painting a little bit. Mm-hmm. These warped shapes.
Yeah. Right.
And even though it's like a rectangle, I'm kind of not focused on that. I'm more focused on like the forms that are in there.
It's super true. Super true. Carl, next. All right. Fabulous. Similar to the man before the landscape. Transparency, seen through.
Right.
And we just talked about Ron.
And also similar.
What are you thinking about?
To the last painting of Chris's with the stripes. You know, it's like, this is like a stripe painting, you know, with these trees. But I was also thinking about particularly this René Magritte painting. It was called, what was the painting called? Oh, The Blank Signature.
Right.
Where he had the horse in the forest with the trees, and it was like kind of coming in and out of focus.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I saw that painting like when I went to the Magritte Museum a few years back. I don't know, it's just always kind of one of my favorite paintings from him. And I don't know, when I was working on this series of work, that painting just kind of came up, and I wanted to kind of reinterpret it in my way.
Right.
And for me, what's important, and also the focal point for me, is not the horse or the trees, but the black holes in the trees as well.
Yes.
Kind of like these voids, or places, vortex or portals for you to enter and come out. And I don't know, it's just
Mm-hmm.
and the horse is done in silver as well, just like the rest of the other figures. And
Again,
just a fun painting for me to make.
yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 holes, right, Chris? They are different in sizes for sure.
They're kind of like mouths too, like
Mhm.
you know, the way for like I said, the trees being human beings, so the way for them to kind of like communicate or like swallow you whole, or whatever it is that they're gonna do.
What do you see those black mark, Chris? How do you see them?
Well, I see them as like, vaginas, slits. I see them as, what's the wound, Christ's wound.
Mm-hmm.
There's one right in the center of the horse. And so here's this mythological kind of dream beast. I mean, but,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love the painting right away because, I mean, I think Marcus and I are both drawers. We make a lot of drawings, and I just love the way Marcus has, come up with these forms, and the way those black slits go along, and then the funny, crazy weirdness of this horse who's like sort of, it's a mysterious painting. I like looking at it.
Yeah, and speaking of drawing, I didn't do any kind of maquettes for this show. So one of my goals was to kind of let everything happen in real time, like right on the canvas, and so I was basically like drawing, with the paint, and kind of letting it all culminate and letting it surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, you were very conscious. I noticed throughout. You use very little color, and then this is really, when you think about it, it's 2 or 3 color, if that. But the different shades of red and orange is just terrific.
Yeah, I've been using like the whole spectrum for a while. Like I didn't really hold back when it comes to color, basically up until now. And as of recently, I felt like I wanted to kind of concentrate and like limit the palette, and I feel like that's more challenging for me. So I wanted to challenge myself in that way, and it's definitely opening up a portal for me. I'm happy in this space of using like tones and limiting a palette, and it's just, I don't know, it feels right at this point in my career.
Right, terrific. Next, Cal. Here's Chris again, thinking about the cosmos and something else in between, I'm sure. These are recurrent also oval form, Chris. Sometimes they can be part of the mushroom. Sometimes they constitute a constellation, Well, I hate to ask you what you were thinking.
I have no idea what I was thinking. I do know that a lot of paintings start with a very loose, it's painted flat, and it's very liquid acrylic, and I'm painting with a broom or a very large brush, and I'm sort of watching something happen. And then as just a way of starting a painting and finding some color, and that kind of painting is very much sort of a surprise, a gestural thing. And then later I came back and these are like Marcus's slits in his trees, you know? his
Yes, they are.
ovals. And there it is,
Breathing holes.
breathing holes.
Breathing hole. I like that. Wow. Super duper good, Marcus. You become like an art critical, son.
I mean, I think.
But you know, I was thinking about what you were saying of Marcus early on the first painting or second painting also is the temperature, hot and cool or warm. And I think in a way, this is sort of wet, you know, Chris. You have a way of painting where you pour paint and move it around and let the liquidity take shapes or create the image itself, whereas the previous painting is have to be drawn and kind of painted around the edge, very somewhat carefully. So this one, the geometry is really born out of the paint, the wetness of the paint, really. Is that a fair thing to say, Chris?
Yes, I think that sometimes I'm approaching a painting with a clearer structure.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just start with seeing what happens to the paint. But I think in both cases, there are paintings like the way Marcus was saying, that first great painting of the figure, that it was a painting of a window.
Yeah.
And that he paints that out. And so that happens for me as well. I'll start with a more controlled kind of scheme, and then sometimes that gets destroyed and lost. And sometimes a painting or often a painting with this kind of loose imagery is totally lost as the painting progresses. So I think I have different ways of attacking paintings, and sometimes things happen they happen more easily. And I think this was a painting where I got very, very lucky, you know.
Yeah, it's seven breathing holes.
Right. Yeah.
Which I don't know, it's conscious, but definitely it's I'm sure it relate to the, 7-pointed stars, which is a common image that we often see in Chris's painting, maybe later. Okay.
Yeah, it's like they also those breathing holes are like coming into focus, because the background you see the delineation between the background and the foreground.
Yes.
This one, and yeah, they bring the foreground out.
Yeah, without negating the I would say, the chaotic.
The fluidity. It's like really fluid.
Absolutely. Cool. Kyle? Here it is. One of my favorite painting in the show. Terrific. What are you thinking about here?
Well, I'm like Chris, like I'm not sure what I was thinking. I love that answer. But it was like it started out with the tree, the falling tree, doubling as a horizon line.
Right.
And when that happened in the painting, because I didn't plan it, but it just happened. And when it happened, I was so taken aback by it. And I thought that, wow, I never saw a painting before with a fall, because people paint trees all the time, but I never saw a fallen tree, and it's so like relevant, and just the way it divided the top of the painting and the lower part of the painting, I thought was really fresh. And so it started out with that, and then the figure came quite early in this one as well, as opposed to some of the other ones where it was like the last hit on the paintings. But it went through a lot of transformation, this one. First he was naked, and I was like, you know what, this painting needs some more white, so maybe I could put some white pants on him. And then toward the bottom, like it became like this ripped panned, and I thought that added a good touch. And like he's like excavating for bones, and I thought that was like a nice analogy for like psychoanalytically, you know, digging within oneself. And I don't know, something. And then I wanted some black, so then I was like, I wanted a bird, and I was like, so I started looking at crows, and I was like, I'm gonna make a crow. And then the last thing to come was the lasso, which was, you know, something that I started to explore recently as a motif. And I just love the way it looks like it's been thrown in there, you know, and also doubling as like a noose, or like, and then trying to figure out what that lasso was trying to capture. Was it the bird, or was it the guy, and was he avoiding it, or just ignoring it? And also how the lasso kind of frames that tree in the distance. And it's just, everything for me kind of came together. And
yeah, it's one of the more complex paintings in the show for sure. Chris, do you?
And it was the first painting.
Yes, it was.
It was the first one.
That's right. Chris, any comment from you?
Oh, I love this painting. It's a very mysterious painting, and I love hearing Marcus talk about how the painting happens. And I love the idea that, you know, you need more white, so then you end up putting pants on, and then you get into ripped pants, and so that the quote unquote symbol meaning, quote unquote, is part and parcel of the putting on the paint. I've always loved the skull bone in the right hand corner, bottom right hand corner.
Right.
And that's a very mysterious shape. And the thing is that you know, I think Marcus and I are like painting junkies. We love painting. We love looking at, you know, a little detail, or the way a blue or a white slides into an orange or whatever. And the way Marcus paints is so beautiful to me in parts. And yet I don't look at this painting and think, oh, it's so pretty. You know, it's beautiful, but it's also, you know, dark and mysterious. And, you know, Marcus doesn't know what this painting means.
Yeah, it's definitely a different world, you know. It's like a portal to a different place. I mean, it's like, I was looking at like these dwarf planet, like dwarf suns, and like, so it's like these Earth-like planets that have red skies, because the sun, in order for vegetation to grow on those planets, the sun has to be closer in proximity, because it's giving off less energy, as opposed to our sun, which is so powerful, and like the distance works for us to survive. But so on these like dwarf sun planets, the sun has to be closer, and therefore makes the sky red. And so that's what I was kind of thinking about with all these landscapes. So they're not, it's not like Mars or anything, but it's like kind of like these parallel worlds that are like Earth-like planets.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, just, it all just came together like that. And yeah, the bone, he's excavating for bones, but like, instead of a skull, like, which is like usually my go-to, I decided to do a different bone. I think it's probably like a hip bone or something like that.
Yeah. Well, it's have that present of enigma, dream and enigma, and somewhere in between the two. Here it is, Chris Martin, 7-pointed star. He cannot help it, but just making it all the time, whenever he can. You know, Chris, I remember one of those early on painting version of it that appear on the cover of the rail when you have your first show at Mitchell in Ash, remember? And that was February, I think 2008 issue. And you know, I'd never asked you when it first appeared. Do you remember when you first painted the 7-pointed star painting? When the first one ever appeared?
Gosh, I don't know. It's a while ago, I think.
After India, your trip to India. Am I right, Chris?
Probably. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, 7, I don't know. It's just a lucky number. Or the funny thing about this painting reminds me, I had a bunch of star paintings, not unlike this, painted on vinyl. And Lance was going to, the idea was that he was going to take, I gave him a couple of these 6-foot paintings and he was going to put them on the billboards. He was going to do a billboard and put a couple of my stars. And I realized that on the billboard, they would be like postage stamps. And we were kind of planning to do this, and he was explaining to me how we were going to get up on the billboards, and we had to have a spotter, and we'd have to climb on these ladders in high wind. And once we got up there, if we fell, we would die. And the more he talked about, you know, we were going to go up there together, and I was going to put these things up there, the more
you didn't want to.
The more I felt like he would say, no, it's not a problem, Chris. And I kept thinking, oh my God, I'm too old for this. But I'm sorry that we never got these things up on the billboards. I don't know where they are now, rolled up somewhere, but I think it's an image that's instantly, you can see it like, you know, like a stop sign, boom, it's just there.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to see it above the highway.
Yeah. Well,
you know, I have like, I met Lance a few times. I didn't know him super well, but when I moved to Chinatown, which is like his stomping ground,
yeah,
I see him like every morning for breakfast because he would go to this place, Dimes Cafe. And I think even like one of his assistants was like working at the cafe. So he'd just be there every day with his like Volkswagen car outside. And we just kept like looking at each other. Like for some reason, he knew I was an artist and I knew he was an artist. And but also I knew his work, the Rambo work. You know, obviously I grew up on that stuff. Like even like my aunts and people like who are not even into art knows his tag.
Yeah.
But I just remember us having a conversation like what you said, like you're sorry that this collaboration with you and him never happened. And similarly, like we talked about, he was like also writing. I think he was writing for a couple of different magazines. And he was like, the first thing he says, like, I want to do an interview on you. He's like, I want to do an interview with you. I was like, all right, let's do it, you know? But then it like kind of never happened. And now it won't ever happen.
We miss him.
Yeah. Well, 7 day of creation. That's how one way of thinking about the 7 pointed star. Carl, can we go next to Marcus?
I love this.
Yeah. So, yeah, this painting puzzled me so much, you know, but it had that similar iconic present, you know, in the middle canvas, similar figure, different treatment, how it was painted for sure. And yeah, the tree again appeared, you know, Marcus. And the car.
The car, you know, I think I was thinking about Basquiat when I did that car. Okay. I feel like he did a lot of cars, and I don't know too many other artists that did a lot of cars. But and this is like an old car too, you know, like I don't know, from the 80s or 70s or something like that. I just love the boxiness of it.
Right.
It's like it reminded me of kind of like a geometrical shape, and also I needed some white once again, so it provided that for me. But yeah, like this figure is not so transparent, but he's just like a wild beast, you know, like just like he doesn't even know what the car is. Like he's from the land, and he just like stumbled across this kind of modern fixture, and he's just like, what is this? And he doesn't even know how to use it, but he's just jumping onto it. And this was the last painting painted for that exhibition, and I was kind of moving out of the orange trees and dark backgrounds, and the colors started to change a little bit and variate, and so they became like green trees, and it was just like a play with like color and with like the wild guy and how the teeth the color of his teeth in the car kind of come together like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was kind of like a closing reception for the show for me.
Mm-hmm. Chris?
It's so good, so goofy. The car, I mean, he's this organic human, and then the car is the opposite. It's this geometric, industrial, hard thing. And you know, my grandson is 5, and he loves coloring in cars. So one of the things we used to do is I would draw cars very crudely as fast as I could and hand them to him, and then he would color them.
Yeah.
And
Oh, wow.
I realized how hard it was for me to draw a car. But yeah, I think the cars I drew were kind of like this. And
yeah, I didn't look at any references for this. It just kind of came out. I just kept sculpting it in a way. And then at first, like, I thought the front looked like the back and the back looked like the front, and there was no delineation between the two. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but you know, it's gonna work somehow. And it's like, it is kind of like weird proportion. I mean, like in the back, like the three-dimensionality of it's kind of weird, but I think it kind of works.
Yeah, definitely. I like how you painted the light beam from the right.
Right. You know, those decisions right there, like that stuff you don't think about. You just kind of do it and then like decide later on if it works or not. And yeah. And then those black tires, I mean, were like these like circles that I felt like the composition needed it.
Yeah. To anchor the car and the whole painting, really.
Right.
Okay, super duper, Carl, moving on. All right, so here is you know, classic material use of Chris. Glitter to Chris Martin is like broken plates to Julian Schnabel in some way. Yeah, I don't know how to describe this, Chris. It's a very unusual painting in a way, because you somehow did not pour all the glitter all over the painting. You know, there are air around it. You can just see it. It's kind of float instead of, you know, compress the whole space. And it's very, I don't know, spooky. Usually I don't think of your glitter painting being spooky, but this one gave me a chill. What do you think, Marcus?
Yeah, I mean, I see the marijuana leaves, and I love also at the very top of the painting, kind of like this blue strip there that kind of it's kind of like the soul of the painting a bit. I think someone said that the soul of the painting is at the very top, you know. And I think that this is prevalent within this work. And then I'm trying to decipher, and I love the sequence as well, like not just the glitter, but the sequence.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to figure out what those other collaged images are. I don't know, maybe Chris could tell us what those are. But there's a lot of color like coming from underneath, which I really dig.
Well, it's kind of remind me the early works where he would put white, you know, Wonder Man's bread, you know. This looks like it's like a toasted bread with all kind of thing on it. Chris, help us out here. What are you thinking or not thinking?
Well, I mean, I think this painting, I was working on it for 3 or 4 years. And so it went through a lot of different, at one point I remember it was a big, simple gold kind of geometric painting. It has a lot of collaged foam core. There's a hole in the painting in the bottom left, I think, where there's a stuffed skull head from Mexico. And There's some Saturn imagery.
I love those holes. Like that's I love when you do that. You put stuff in there, objects. It's
You know,
crazy how paintings can hold those things. You don't think about that.
I remember this painting had a lot more images in it, and about a year ago or more, I remember Mike Williams was in the studio and felt I should take out a bunch of the images, which I did. And that was very helpful. So it had a lot of different imagery, and then I destroyed most of that imagery. And I think there's still like a Saturn and the marijuana leaves, but you know, I don't know. I mean, these things, they develop in a way which at a certain point I felt I really loved the painting.
Got to see it in flesh for sure. Yeah, to appreciate the materiality. Cal, let's go to Marcus. No, it's still Chris Martin. Yes.
Great.
What do you think, Marcus?
Well, it's kind of more like optimistic. In a series of work for the exhibition, and I just love these rocks that kind of make up this wall almost, like a brick wall, but with different. And then the peace sign, you know, reminds me of like, you know, the 70s and Woodstock, and you know, just like LSD and kind of like that world of psilocybin and I don't know.
I also know.
Beautiful painting.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, I mean that bottom horizontal line, you know, another classic signature gesture, and it just hold everything up above so wonderfully. Nothing is falling quite yet, Chris. It's anchor. All right, let's move on. Yeah. All right. So this is one of the 4 paintings, I think, painted in this palette.
Oh, 3.
And this one, 3, only 3. This one got
3.
crushed around the bottom. What prompted you to do that, Marcus?
Oh, well, I just wanted him to kind of like sit on the and kind of anchor the painting. He's grounding the painting almost. And as you can, he's also cropped, which was another important thing for me with these works. And then some red kind of spilled in there from the back, from the underpainting, because this was another window. Right. And as I started to render the figure, the red started to mix in, which happens a lot in my paintings anyway, because I never clean my brushes. Yeah. And I just thought it just reminded me of like meat, or like, and it also led to the transparency of the figure, and like it's something that also connects us, just like the skull. You know, it's just like the inner workings of our body. And I thought that was great, you know, and so yeah, like, so I called it Inner Glow, because I felt like you were seeing, like you're getting a glimpse into under his skin, and like the radiating energy that comes from that, and I don't know. Right. And yeah, the black void, once again, like devoid of any context. It's just a wild figure.
Chris, what do you think?
Oh, he's so cute. I love this painting. I think about you know, those Goya black paintings where the figures are coming out of the black. And there's a long tradition of European portraiture. A lot of those Dutch paintings, there's just a black background. People are coming out of the black. You see that in some great Manet paintings.
Velasquez.
Yeah, coming back. Yeah. So I think that
yeah,
And Cezanne too. Cezanne, big one.
Oh, those early, early palette knife. So, a painting like this, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's very kind of in your face and ugly in a way.
Yeah.
It's crude and ugly, and then it's also, it's so beautiful. Of course, I like anything where the bottom of the painting has this nice, strong horizon line.
You know what it reminded me of too, Chris, was Rainer Fetten, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it just that there's certain vulnerability, isolation, but it's also so strong, all simultaneously there for sure. Okay, let's go to, I think we have another, maybe.
Oh,
Okay, so this is the big painting, a big painting. It's an orchestra of all that we've been talking about in Chris's work. You can see or hear. Yeah, it's when you mentioned, Marcus, earlier about optimism, I think this painting is the embodiment of that.
absolutely.
Very uplifting, and I'm happy to see the rail bird in it, Chris, on the far left. And I don't know how to describe, but you have a feast of Chris's, all of the, what I've been thinking over the years. This painting, you kind of want to take home to live with. Don't you think, Marcus?
Absolutely. This one is this is like the perfect, in my opinion, Chris Martin painting. It has like all the elements that he does so well. And I mean, I love that bottom, like the bottom part, how it's like all these earthly elements down there, and even like the little the car freshener that doubles as like a real tree, like that. That's so strong to me. And these blue and black like tiger stripes in the painting, and there's just, the composition is just so good, and I love it. I mean, it's all these historical references from Egypt, but they all tie together.
Super true. And I felt that two little tiny mushroom there is Kristen Tamara standing in the landscape. Yeah, I just felt that aura so strong. Super
and that frog.
Yeah, the frog. Oh yeah. Cow.
Oh, love this painting.
Oh yeah.
Right. So it's no figure, just 3 paintings.
Yeah.
3 trees as a painting. Chris?
I love this painting. It's, you say no figures, but these are figures. These are, they've got these wound vaginal slits. It's a 3, it's this sort of trinity, and the branches are very phallic. And so I feel that this is a very anthropomorphic trees. It's sort of a classic trinity. I think this is a very iconic painting. And then you've just got this beautiful color that comes out of it.
Yeah.
And I would take this one home for sure.
Yeah. It's have an aura of religious presence. You're right. Wound or stigmata. It's very simple and beautiful painting.
This one has so many different layers as well. There was like a big face under before, and there was like 6 or 7 trees under there, and I kind of erased a bunch of them and like left these 3 and kind of brought them out even more. But they kind of feel a little alien to me as well. Like they're not like normal trees. And I love what Jessica said in the rail review. I thought it was so on point that she said they were kind of like hollowing. They were kind of like
Okay.
making noise, and they were moving as well. You know, if you stare at it for a long enough time, you'll see the movement.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Jessica Holmes. That's right.
yes, yes, yes.
Cool.
And yeah, it's just they're taking on the form of a human.
Yeah. Terrific. Can we go to the next one, Cal? I think we might have. So yeah, this one when I just came and when I first arrived and look at it immediately, Chris, couldn't help but think of 1960, the Kunin door to the river.
Ah,
You know, but instead of his use of very, I would calligraphic, you know, it's very anchor. Here's more fluid, but the feeling is very similar. You know, um, it's a terrific painting. So I don't know whether I know you admire the Kunin, Chris, but somehow it has that space to somewhere else, and it just happened to be right in the middle, somewhat of the canvas.
I feel like that middle point to me reminds me of like a Earth-like form
Mm-hmm.
in space, you know, but
Right.
kind of abstracted and kind of formless. A little, you know, it's not like so spherical, but it is spherical.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we can just look at it for a while and then come back. And Kyle, do we have any other images to show? Here's another terrific painting in the show. It's the opposite of the one that we just saw. Chris, from one to the next. I mean, that's just tremendous in terms of light, density, and altogether different kind of space. Will they paint it in, you know, in what, in duration of months in between, or how?
this one was painted up in the Catskills, and the previous one was painted in Brooklyn.
Ah,
Um,
yeah, I look at this painting and I thought of immediately of Rob Blakely for some reason. You know, it's the opposite of the other association with the Kunin moving from Manhattan to the Hampton, you know, there's an openness to the landscape and whatnot, where this is a dark landscape for sure. Yeah, I think this might be the last one, Kyle. Maybe let's look at a few images of Marcus's drawing before we can open up to the Q&A, because I know that people probably would love to ask a few questions.
Yeah, that's these trees kind of like the way compositionally they ended up. I feel like they're kind of phallic,
Mm-hmm.
which, you know, like I said before, like the trees and the humans. And then there's this crow like just landing on this guy's head, but the crow is like super cropped, so you don't necessarily know what it is.
Well,
But, yeah.
the crow landed on a person's head is not that different from the fellow previously standing on the car, you know?
Right. True.
Similar. Okay, Kyle. I think we have a few more. Can just go quickly here.
Oh yeah, this one's super cool. I like this one a lot. This one came a little earlier than the rest of them, but it was just me like tracing my hand. Like that was like my actual hand on the paper, and I traced it. And then I decided, you know, like your face and your hand are kind of like similarly sized. So I was like, I'll just do a face, and then like I love how like the leaf is like kind of entering his mouth in a way, but like I love his eye kind of coming through the leaf, and like just the nature of the watercolor, the transparency of the watercolor. I was just kind of exploring with this.
Yeah, terrific image. Okay, I think we have one more here, which remind me of the other painting, one of the figure that painted right in the bottom.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
space.
this skeleton kind of laying on the grass, and it's just like super minimal world and a void of any color, and it's kind of like a farewell. It's one of the last drawings I've done for the show.
It's a terrific drawing. I love that drawing.
Yeah, don't you? What are you? The sun, isn't that the sun, Chris?
It's just a terrific drawing.
Yeah.
And the figure is sort of a skeleton turning into the ground,
Yeah.
becoming a tree. It's just the trees growing out of his feet and his legs. It's just a lovely afternoon, clearly.
It's also like, it reminds me of this like Picasso quote, you know, we can end off with. It said, there are painters who transform the sun to a yellow spot, but there are others who, with the help of their art and their intelligence, transform a yellow spot into a sun.
Wow, that was lovely. Can you send that to me later, Marcus?
Oh yeah, of course.
That's perfect. What a good way to end, you guys. Carl, this is terrific. Let's get some Q&A and welcome our friends' questions to both Chris and Marcus.
Great. Thank you, Phong. This has been a really fantastic conversation. I can't wait to go immerse myself in these works after having heard you two talk about them. I am first going to hand the mic over to our friend Kathy Bradford. Kathy, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Thanks, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
That was a great setup with having Marcus and Chris talk about each other's work. Lots of insights. I like that a lot. And thanks, Phong, for letting me ask the first question. What I'm curious about is how you two got to know each other. I remember, Marcus, your first solo show in New York. We were all so excited about it. And I'm sure I told Chris, boy, you got to see this show. And I think soon after that, you two visited each other's studios. And that's what I want to hear about. What was that like? Chris remembers seeing a skull drawing on the floor.
Right.
What do you all remember about just walking into the other one's studio? And
I just remember going to Chris's studio and being like blown away, you know, about the amount of work that he had there and the stacks and stacks of paintings on top of each other and the way he worked like in series. And that was really inspiring to see, because I was at the time I was working on like it would be like a one-off painting, a bunch of one-off paintings. And I saw that he started with like, he'll do like 10 stripe paintings and then kind of variate them as he goes along. And that was super inspiring. And then also it felt like so much history in that place, you know, just like, you know, something beyond me and like something before my time. It just felt like it was like a time capsule. And then like it had this beautiful skylight and the carpet like full of like glitter and paint everywhere. And I was just like, wow, like I want my studio to be like this.
is it now?
It's getting there. I need some more time, but definitely really inspiring. And yeah, and then like he had like 6 flat file cabinets full of drawings. I remember he's like, yeah, like let's go to the cabinets and like pick out a drawing you like. I was like, what, really? Like and we did some trades.
Chris, you said that Michael Williams told you in a studio visit to take out some stuff of your paintings. Did you tell Marcus? Did you give Marcus any suggestions? First visit?
I don't think so. No, what I remember was visiting you for the first time, Marcus, and there was paintings everywhere. There was drawings everywhere, and stacks of drawings, piles of drawings, and I think it's before you got your dog. Yeah, and then just piles of books. And but I was very just taken right away that, you know, you're a natural. You're a painter, and I think that it was fascinating to get to know you and hear your story and realize that you know, just that you came to painting from a very different way than I did, and yet it's the same passion. It's the same just natural touch and love of paint and finding imagery. And I just felt right away like, okay, we're brothers. This is great. I remember I did get a couple of drawings from you that are up in my house now right away. And I remember thinking when I go to a studio and I see work that I want, like I want this thing. Yeah. And I remember asking, I got a boxing bag drawing, and I got a drawing which had this harp in it. And I love those drawings. And so for me, when I go to a studio and I think I'd like to take this home, that's when I know I really, I love it. So, and it's been just fun to continue talking about painting and go to each other's studios.
Yeah, and unlike you, I've been moving around a lot too. You know, not having a spot like owning a studio. So I'm renting, and so it's almost like starting over each time. But I'm looking forward to having a space where I can like build a legacy and have that, like when you walk into your studio and you have like all this wealth of history there that kind of informs your work in a way.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thanks for asking that question. That was awesome. And to answer your question, you said, how do we meet? I think it was probably because of you, Catherine.
Yes.
We told him to come to the show, and
Thank you, Kathy. Next, we are going to turn over to Paula Carlton Evans. I'm asking you to unmute you.
Oh, hey, nice surprise. This is a great talk. My question was just technical. I've been to the show. I've been to both the shows. They're fantastic. I've gone a few times, actually. But I was sort of curious, Chris, you seem to paint on tarp. And I really loved that you did this. And I was curious if it was a function of economics, if you were, you know, it's just a lot less expensive, I would imagine. And if you were conscious of the seam placement, and if you treat the canvas or the tarp with anything, just like to hear what you say about it, please.
It was an economic thing. Many years ago, I found to find canvas large enough to stretch on really big stretchers, that the tarps were really cheap, and it's good, strong canvas. You get a heavy duty tarp, and usually I ground them with gesso, and sometimes I'm more conscious of the seams. I think I almost don't see them anymore because I am so used to having the seams in my work, and it's not something that bothers me. Sometimes it's nice, but it's really an economic thing. You don't go to an art supply store, you go to a house painting supply place in Queens, and they'll deliver house painting drop cloths for not so much money. It's great.
Yeah, it looks wonderful. I fully approve.
Thank you, Paula. Next, we are going to go over to Rail Comrade Ty.
Thanks, Cal. Thank you so much, Phong, of course, and Marcus and Chris for this conversation. I've been really listening attentively. I'm having a lovely time. As I think now everyone at the Rail has now been talking about, we're all reading this essay that Raymond wrote about you, Chris. And one of the things that was mentioned was like these notes that you would take during sessions talking with James Harrison. And so this is a question for you, and then also for Marcus. I guess I'll be asking the actual context of the question, but this note that you took down that Raymond noted was take a loaded brush, write your name, and then you ask yourself 2 questions. Can you stop abstracting yourself? To what degree? And that is something that I am constantly thinking about, is like whether I'm capable of quitting the abstraction of self, and what that what happens to the self when you stop abstracting it. So I'm wondering what came of that note for you, and then I wanted to ask that question in its entirety to you, Marcus.
Can you say that again, what the note was? I don't.
Yeah, totally. It's, can you stop abstracting yourself? To what degree?
Well, I think we all walk around thinking that we have a self, you know, that we all have our own story, and I know who I am. I'm, you know, this person, and so we walk around with a self. But I think that in painting, in the process of painting and drawing, we can actually touch a place or in moments where we forget the self entirely. So we don't know who we are. We don't know who made that painting. We don't know who made that drawing. And so those are moments with which I think bring us energy and joy, when you actually forget about yourself or discover yourself in some new shape or form or some new image. Is that helpful in any way?
Yeah, I think that's definitely helpful. I'm thinking a lot about like the idea that sometimes you can create something that feels very abstract and outside of self, or like an observation of something, and then you can hand it to someone else and they can tell you that it looks just like you, right? That experience of like accidentally putting yourself there when you think that you're making something new. And that's something that I think about when talking about abstraction a lot. But I'm also wondering, Marcus, if you have any thoughts on that.
I agree with what Chris said, and also it's like I feel like as we're always like changing and evolving, so the person you were yesterday is not necessarily the person you are today or tomorrow. And you know, like you said about making a painting like years ago, and then you look back like, oh, I made that. And so, but also to answer your question, like I don't know if I want to stop abstracting myself. Maybe that's like kind of the essence of creating kind of obscurity, and not like something so obvious.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both so much.
Thank you for the thought-provoking question, Ty. Next, we're going to go to our friend G.E. Schwartz, asking to unmute you now.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Cal, Phong, Chris, Marcus. I keep thinking, you know, looking at these works so much that that you both seem to be making works that are kind of guides to transposing nature and, you know, interior and exterior, cosmos and psyche into these ecstatic exaggerations of themselves. And do you, either of you, ever think of your work as visionary? And I don't mean that with a giant V, but I mean just as working through that visionary sense of things. You almost kind of just said that, I think both of you, in a different way just a minute ago.
Visionary. Interesting. I mean, I see them as kind of like visions for sure. Something beyond the world, this world, and something that kind of comes through us or comes through me from a cosmic order, and kind of takes place. Well, when a painting is done, it's obviously taking place in the real world, you know, where others are going to be looking, seeing, and interpreting the work in their own ways. And so, what was your initial question again?
Well, just the idea of like you're taking something from either an exterior or an interior, and both of you are doing it in different ways, and then transposing it into something with an exaggerated sense of that. In other words, heightening something, putting it out there. And in a sense, it's almost, again, like you just said, it's very much kind of like a sense of working with visions, like a vision quest almost kind of a thing. And then creating this art, which is a record of that, a document of it after you've done it, you know, so.
Right, and I think it's also expressed in like your individuality as well.
Right.
It's like everyone knows the cosmos, everyone knows landscapes, interiors, but no one's gonna do it in the same way. You know, no one's gonna render these images in the same way.
I agree with Marcus.
Thank you, GE.
Perfect,
And,
thank you.
I'm sorry that we can't make it to more questions. We have to turn it back over to Phong, who wants to make a couple remarks to close.
Thank you, Carl. I just want to make the kinship between Marcus and Chris. Just what you say earlier, Marcus, that you respond to the accumulated history of Chris's space that you are long for someday soon.
Yeah.
To have the similar, you know, space, home for one's own, so to speak, to work from. This is what I wanted to just read just a few lines here from Raymond's epic, beautiful essays on Chris. There was a total relinquishing of ambition. Struggle of the past were internalized, then resolved. By the turn of the millennium, the grand synthesis was finally complete. The time, the place, and the work were together. As the poet James Schuyler once said, things take the time they take. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you so much, Phong.
Phong, I just wanted to settle a question that you brought up in the very beginning, but wasn't resolved.
Yeah.
I think these two guys are equally handsome.
Okay. Beautifully fast. Hello. Kathy. All right. Chris, you're handsome.
All right. Thank you all so much. At the Rail, we have a tradition of ending our community events with a poetry reading. And so today I'm thrilled to welcome our poet laureate of the day, Molly McGlennen, to the stage. Poet Molly McGlennen, born and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota, is of Anishinaabe and European descent. She's an associate professor of English and Native American Studies and a director of the American Studies program at Vassar College. She earned a PhD in Native American Studies from the University of California, Davis, and an MFA in creative writing from Mills College. McGlennen is the author of Fried Fish and Flour Biscuits, published by Salt's Earthworks series of Indigenous writers, Our Bearings, published by the University of Arizona's Suntrack series, and the monograph Creative Alliances, the transnational designs of Indigenous women's poetry from the University of Oklahoma Press, which earned the Beatrice Medicine Award for Outstanding Scholarship in American Indian Literature. Molly, over to you.
Thank you, Cal, for the introduction. Thank you for having me here today. I feel like I was late to the party, but I've been here the whole time, don't worry. And it was really lovely. Can y'all hear me first off? Yeah, okay. It was really lovely getting to know Marcus and Chris's work. It's extraordinary. I was really inspired, Marcus, in fact, by your living off the land, because I saw such an ironic twist with a lot of Native contemporary artists that I'm in love with. So thank you for that inspiration today. So bonjour and miigwech, everybody. I'm just going to read a couple poems from Our Bearings, which is, oh, another great artist, Frank Big Bear, incredible artist who graces the cover of my book. From Minneapolis, he's Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, like myself. And this is a book that's all about what being urban and native is all about, and finding inspiration from that place. It also was a book, I'll just say, and then I'll read a poem. It was also a book that came out right in the aftermath of the George Floyd murders in Minneapolis, when I'd be hearing from family members and American Indian movement members where the city was on fire and there was protests. And it was just, really extraordinary to be doing these readings for this book in the midst of all of that, and honoring the long historic activism of Native peoples in the city of Minneapolis and lots of cities across the country, and their support and alliance with Black Lives Matter. So I just wanted to acknowledge that before I read a couple of these poems. And I thought, since it's Friday, I'm just going to read a couple of poems that are like stories. So they're like delicious and delightful to listen to, and you don't have to think too hard, and you can just enjoy your start to the weekend, hopefully. So this is Remains 2. There are ways we never talk about what is right in front of us, too afraid, or like a phantom limb, vivid perceptions of a fiction remain. You think and feel the severed portion still attached. One of my diabetic uncles recently had half of his leg amputated. He is the youngest boy of my grandparents' 8 children, lives in Northeast and not truck driving anymore. He used to deliver milk all over the Western Twin Cities area, and I heard he is still not sober. The Christmas he came late to my auntie's duplex in St. Paul, my sister and I slid in our socks on the old wood floors, trying not to draw attention to ourselves. We got cornered in the tiny kitchen. I was teased for thoughts of going to college, and my sister for practicing and performing her violin. We put food on our plates and slip out. I asked my mom how he gets around now. I don't know, she said. A cane, a chair, a fake leg, a fiction, I think. It rests in the outlines of our absences, slipping in and out of rooms, living one piece at a time on that plate in our memories, until the only connective tissue is the stories we have of ourselves. In this story of us, however, we are not ghosts. We are not diabetics or the first college grad or a creaking floorboard or truck drivers. We are not the youngest or the oldest, sober or drunk. We are not severed or whole cities or suburbs. We are not what they call us, nor what we call ourselves. We are only what we want to say. Thank you. And if I have time, I'll just read one poem about Prince. Yeah, want to hear a Prince poem? Okay, let's do it. He's one of my favorites. And back in the day, growing up in Minneapolis, I was always at First Ave, which is his club. I was there and loved music and saw a lot of great shows there. That was the old Greyhound bus station depot, his club. And that's where a lot of the relocation in the 1950s of Native peoples coming into the city would come out of that bus station right there. And that's how my family ended up in Minneapolis. And so this is called Ode to First Ave. This is the last thing I'll read. So thank you for listening. This is Ode to First Ave. Last summer, your ceiling collapsed. I wasn't there, but I read about it. Paper said that the crash pulled down some of the sprinkler systems onto the rockers below. Back in the 90s, when I was your greatest patron, I sneaked through your doors and would be face to face with those luminaries come real. The Time, LL Cool J, Ben Harper, Fishbone, A Tribe Called Quest, Maceo, the Fugees. Every time I'd eye the crowd for Prince, wanted to be the lucky one to be invited back to his purple mansion on Lake Minnetonka. Alas, never. But by evening's end, what did it matter? I had danced through each grain belt, danceteria style. Locals will know what that means. Oh, how I miss your star-studded entry. Each time I return home, I look for new ones that I may not have noticed. For each purple rain remnant, glam slam memory, I squint and see the corner once before. Greyhound bus station that brought in relocation signees. A suitcase and a few dollars of hope. Walking out into a world of promises, some kept, most broken, toward Franklin Avenue, the Phillips neighborhood, young single mothers, $12 a week, cleaning houses, hotels, forming enclaves and Indian centers, and the backbones of hard-fought organizing. Oh, First Ave, if I stop long enough, you've always been a comings and goings corner, hearts broken and healed, ceilings collapsing and rising again, new sets of dancers and artists connecting the way each painted white star that dots the rows of dream-filled cylinder blocks. Oh, First Ave, you've always been the heat of gathering places across years of resilience, across generations of people, folding the luminary of hope into their purses or pockets and walking out into the night. Miigwech, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Eleanor and Anya, for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Molly.
Thank
you so much. And thank you, Marcus and Chris and Phong. And we'd like to thank Anton and Bridget from Anton Kern Gallery and Artemis from Marcus's studio for helping make today's event possible. We encourage everyone to view our archive of these conversations on our YouTube channel, where we'll upload today's conversation shortly. And join us on Monday at 1 p.m. for a conversation on Rodrigo Moynihan with Cressida Connolly, Nathan Nernan, John Yao, and David Rhodes on the occasion of Moynihan's work at David Nolan Gallery. We'll conclude with a poetry reading by Guillermo Felice Castro. You can now turn on your microphones and say goodbye as you leave. Thank you.
Thank you, Cal, Phong, Nick, Molly.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Phong, Marcus.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Cal,
Thank you.
Molly, thank you,
For
Molly.
coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Molly.
Thank you, Molly.
Thank you, Kathy.
And thank you, Chris and Marcus.
Question. Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you,
Chris.
as always.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Good to see you. Here's Raymond.
Thank you,
Hey,
Phong.
Raymond.
Thank you, Chris.
first
Thank you,
great
Marcus.
essay.
Thanks, everyone.
Great essay. I gotta read it
Thank
again.
you, Raven, for that essay.
It's coming out from the Kordansky Gallery in a month or two.
Great.
Sorry for all the spoilers.
Yeah.
I should have just read that whole entire essay and don't do anything else. But
I have to get sunglasses now.
One day we'll all show up with them and surprise
Yeah.
Phong.
Come on, Raymond. We get
Hi,
you.
Kathy.
Everybody see you.
Thanks,
Thank you, guys. It's
Thank you,
Friday.
Kathy.
Friday.
Molly, thank you for the beautiful reading.
Molly, thank you very much. Lovely.
Thank you,
poem.
Molly.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, it's awesome. All right, so now we can go to get lunch.
Get back to work.
All right, have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, Phong.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.